Tonight, debating the future of 155 acres of prime real estate along Toronto's waterfront.
The next mayor has to hit the ground running on this file.
Mayoral candidates pitch their vision for the future of Ontario Place, how at least one says they'd try to block Doug Ford's plan to put a private spa there.
They are really excited about the scooters.
Most people are using it because they don't own the cars.
Plus, we'll take you to the first city in the GTA to allow e-scooters, why Brampton decided to go ahead with its program while other cities like Toronto have banned them outright.
Yeah, you know, there's some home field advantage in this.
And helping heckling Jays fans get a leg up to a brand new summer patio. We'll show you the renovations just unveiled at Rogers Centre. Good evening, I'm Chris Glover. No one's debating that Ontario Place is outdated and needs to be renovated. But what to do with the prime spot down by the water dominated Toronto's mayoral race today. Ali Chiasson explains the plan city politicians are pitching for the provincially owned site.
What's the Ontario Place you remember? Theme park, the Cinesphere, swan boats? Okay, now think about the Ontario Place you want for the future.
A place for Torontonians and all Ontarians to be able to come together, to play, to congregate, to be healthy, to enjoy our natural environment.
Today, mayoral candidates made their pitch for what to do about the old Ontario Place lands, which occupies 155 acres of Toronto's waterfront. But it's owned by the province, and the province has plans to build a resort and spa there, costing hundreds of millions of dollars, including a parking garage that would see the removal of about 800 trees.
We're going to say no to Premier Ford. We're going to say no to the privatization of our waterfront. And as mayor, we're going to keep our waterfront here at Ontario Place public for many years to come.
I don't think spending $500 million to finance a private spa that most Torontonians can't afford is a priority that we have in Toronto right now.
Former Deputy Mayor and Housing Chair Anna Bailau wants to relocate the Ontario Science Centre from Don Mills in Eglinton down to Ontario Place, freeing up space to build housing on the Science Centre land instead.
We could build 5,000 homes, 1,500 of those to be affordable.
Turns out the province has been looking at bringing some Science Centre programming to the Ontario Place grounds already. Quote, "While that work is ongoing, we're glad that Ms. Bailau agrees and look forward to the support of all mayor candidates as we redevelop this important provincial asset." But what if we switch up that thinking from provincial asset to asset for the people of this province? Norm Di Pasquale from the organization Ontario Place for All says public interest, not commercial interest, should drive the vision.
So, I mean, the decision's going to be made at City Hall to accept or not accept the development application from the private spa people by December. So the next mayor has to hit the ground running on this file.
The Ontario Place land is governed by the province of Ontario, so the best we can really do is advocate for what Toronto wants. It will surely be a big topic of debate on the election trail, considering it's something that so many of us really care about. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Meanwhile, another busy day for Ontario's housing minister out again today proposing changes. This latest plan allows municipalities to expand boundaries where development can happen. But critics, including opposition parties, worry it'll lead to even more suburban sprawl. Lorenda Redekop has those details.
The PC government says this is about getting more homes built across the province. It needs to speed up construction. Projections from the budget estimate 80,000 new homes will be built this year, half of its target.
To ensure we reach our goal of building 1.5 million homes by 2031.
This afternoon, the housing minister introduced new legislation. Among the proposed changes, 74 different provincial fees would be frozen for builders. Municipalities would have more flexibility to expand their housing boundaries. Farmers could build up to 3 new residences on their property. And the 29 fastest growing municipalities would have to provide a growth plan for transit corridors.
We know that more progress and more action is required for our housing goals, particularly in the face of economic uncertainty, inflation, and soaring interest rates.
As for the Greenbelt, no more changes, at least not so far.
The policies that we're presenting for comment today, all existing Greenbelt protections are maintained. There's no changes.
He made no promises beyond this document.
I was troubled by Minister Clark's refusal to say he won't open up the Greenbelt further.
The NDP's housing critic worries about municipalities being able to expand housing boundaries and that it'll mean sprawl.
It locks us into unsustainable transportation patterns, and it's incredibly expensive for municipalities to service.
She also wanted measures to help with soaring costs, such as expanded rent control. There's nothing for renters beyond what was announced yesterday that includes protections against rent evictions. One Toronto tenant likes that being able to add an air conditioner will now be clearly spelled out, but says that with these changes, it still feels impossible to ever buy.
I've been saving money for quite a while. Every year I put a little bit more in and think, oh, I have a little bit more of a down payment, and then every year prices are higher. So I never quite get enough to get there.
The government says it'll now do 60 days of consultations on its plan to wrap up on June 5th. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto police are asking for the public's help tonight in identifying a suspect who is accused of harassing young girls in East York. Officers releasing a picture of the man, and police say between last Sunday and Tuesday, he harassed girls walking in the Floyd and Pape Avenues area. It's alleged he made inappropriate comments to the girls, all under 13 years old, and asked them to go with him. If you think you recognize him, contact police. In Schaumburg, police are releasing new details tonight about the vehicle used in a drive-by shooting that left a man with serious injuries.
And it was a 2021 Lexus RX 350 with license plate CXAK 183. It was a white vehicle. That vehicle had been reported stolen out of Toronto, and it hasn't been recovered yet.
This is new video from police, and investigators now believe two people were in the Lexus RX 350 on February 12th when multiple gunshots were fired at a man on Center Street. The victim, who was walking his dog at the time, was shot at 13 times. He is recovering from his injuries, and police are asking the public to be on the lookout for the vehicle and to contact investigators with any information about its location. To Brampton now, becoming the first place in the GTA to sanction e-scooters. The mayor touting it as a great active transportation option, and while the e-scooters come with a host of rules, disability advocates say two-wheelers are rarely enforced. Dale Manukduk has the story.
Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown, local politicians and tech execs officially wheeled in a new pilot program today.
The goal is to have as many alternatives for active transportation, whether it's running, walking, cycling, using an e-scooter. We can't be dependent only on vehicles.
A fleet of the tiny electric vehicles started popping up around the city on Monday. Up to 750 will be available to residents.
I see like a lot of TikTok, like they are really excited about the scooters.
Most people are using it because they don't own the cars, and the insurance is very costly.
Here's how it works. You walk up to one of the locked e-scooters and scan the QR code, which will direct you to download an app and rent the scooter. This one charges $1.15 base price plus 42 cents per minute.
Typically 2 to 5 kilometers is sort of the sweet spot. You want to get somewhere quickly and you don't want to spend money on rideshare or a bus is going to take too long. You can hop on a scooter, grab it, you get there in just a few minutes.
Is a turn signal, so you can see turning.
3 companies are part of the project, each operating in different areas of Brampton, each device with different features.
Voice assistance, toggled speed, front and back brake assist. You can use the scooter in Punjabi, so it speaks to you in that language as well.
The scooters can be used on roads with a speed limit of 50 kilometers per hour or less, bicycle lanes, and multi-use paths. They travel up to 20 kilometers per hour and are not permitted on sidewalks. Disability advocates say e-scooters come with a host of issues. On Monday, Paris, France voted to make them illegal starting September 1st. But even in Toronto, where they've been banned for 2 years, people do still ride them.
People regularly ride them on the sidewalks, and nobody's come up with a way to effectively enforce the ban on sidewalks. So people who think the sidewalk should be safe for pedestrians are now going to be sitting ducks for a silent e-scooter racing at them from behind. And remember, the person riding it isn't insured.
The city says if an e-scooter is taken into a designated no-riding zone, the vehicles are supposed to shut off and notify the user. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Brampton.
All right, let's get right to Colette Kennedy now for a first look at weather. And Colette, a little cooler tomorrow, but the sunshine seems like it'll make up for all that.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, Chris. It makes up for a lot, doesn't it? But it will be a little cooler, especially with the northwesterly breeze. And also when you compare to the temperatures, our daytime highs from today. And if you're thinking to yourself, it didn't really seem like we were in the mid-teens. Well, these highs came last night, just showing you we did finally get to the teens in Toronto, but basically in those overnight hours, so not much to enjoy. The afternoon high was more around 11 degrees. Even Ottawa warming up after those significant hours of seeing the freezing rain and that ice build up and those power outages. So we do have mostly clear skies overnight tonight. We will have a good deal of sunshine as we head through the day on Friday. We'll pick up a bit more cloud cover to Saturday, but I'm going to go into more detail on that coming up. I do just want to give you your Easter weekend forecast here. So there's the cooler number 7. As well into Saturday, only a high of 6. But then for the second half of the holiday weekend, we're back to seasonal on Sunday, and we begin the warm-up on Monday, and it's going to keep climbing. So I'll also have more on that coming up, Chris.
Absolutely. Looking gorgeous. Thanks, Colette. So as Colette was just alluding to, the weather next week for the Jays home opener will be even better than this weekend. And along with temperatures into the 20s, the hometown crowd will also be treated to several upgrades at Rogers Centre. Greg Ross got a sneak peek of the renovations and how they'll improve the fan experience.
3, 2, 1.
A countdown and ribbon cutting as the Blue Jays unveiled what is now being called the Outfield District.
We're looking to transform the experience and turn what was a stadium into a ballpark. That's kind of the theme.
And that meant a complete facelift in the outfield. For fans, it means new seats and new social spaces with a view of the field, including a massive rooftop patio in the upper deck.
Torontonians and Canadians love a rooftop patio in the summer. And we drew inspiration from a bunch of different places across the city to bring in a rooftop patio experience that would be incredibly distinct.
Also in the upper deck, Park Social.
This one is family friendly, fan friendly. It's our park within the park.
There are also several other smaller social areas, all with unique new food options.
We really wanted to represent the neighborhoods of Toronto, so every food item that you're going to find here at the stop represents a Toronto neighborhood.
One of the biggest differences, and one that will be most noticeable to fans, are the new bullpens, which have been raised up to make them more accessible to fans, especially here on the visitor side. These new general admission bleachers are conveniently located directly beside the mound where pitchers will warm up, definitely within heckling range.
Oh, there's some home field advantage in this. So absolutely, look, we have respectful fans in Toronto, and we obviously will have some policies, but I think, look, that's part of it, is being able to actually get closer to it and heckle a bit if you can, as long as it's done in a nice way. And yeah, that's one of the unique things of this renovation.
And because of all these renovations, they've actually changed the dimensions of the playing surface. In fact, where they made those renovations to the bullpen, they moved the home run fence in and made it higher, and then they've made the home run fence lower in other areas like center field, the deepest part of the ballpark. Greg Ross, CBC News.
Returning now with a story that is discouraging some parents in the Toronto District School Board. The board is admitting a lottery system that was introduced this year to fill spots in the city's highly sought-after alternative public schools experienced a glitch. Talia Ricci explains why some parents are upset that many kids from underrepresented communities were excluded.
Parents described feeling immediately like something wasn't right when the results were first announced.
His friends and my son were kind of joking about, it seems like the white identified kids got in. My son could see that he didn't get in, but also other racialized kids in his class didn't get in either.
The TDSB had previously reported that racialized students, those with disabilities, and those who identify as LGBTQ have been underrepresented in the alternative schools. This year, they tried to address that with a new lottery system. But the TDSB has confirmed those groups of students were not included in part of the random selection for availability at 17 elementary alternative schools due to an error by a third-party vendor.
There was a mixture of shock and horror, to tell you the truth.
We're really quite angry and a little bit kind of astounded, if I'm going to be frank, that this was happening in 2023.
On Metro Morning, the chair of the TDSB stressed that despite the error, the board still met its goals when it comes to prioritize students.
The first part of the lottery went correctly, where we first added in all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit students and applicants with siblings at the school. All of those received seats. After that, 25% of the remaining spaces were allocated to students from historically and currently underrepresented communities.
But the error meant that students from those groups weren't given a chance when the computerized random selection process for the leftover spots took place. The TDSB says it's taking steps to address the issue, in part by adding more seats.
I believe it was about 480 students that remain on that wait list that second wait list that was not included in that second round wait list.
Parents say they still have a lot of questions and are calling for more communication from the board.
There has to be a transparent and clearly articulated process to address what has taken place.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Bell Media is denying it mistreated a now former TV weather presenter on CP24 and wants Patricia Jaggernoth's human rights complaint thrown out. Meg Roberts sat down with her today about the company's response.
What did I ever do except be happy and show up?
An apology is what television personality Patricia Jaggernoth was hoping for after filing a human rights complaint with Bell Media for alleged racism, sexism, and discrimination while working for CP24. Instead, the company has asked the Human Rights Commission to throw out her claim.
How can you not want this to go before the tribunal? How can you just want to pass it off?
Jaggernoth has claimed she was treated as a token and commodity. She said she watched as white colleagues, often newer ones, climb the corporate ladder while she was never offered a contract, despite working for the company for more than a decade. Bell Media says it vigorously denies any and all discrimination allegations and that Jaggernoth ought to have exhausted a grievance procedure reasonably available to her as a unionized person. The company says it commits to waiving any time limits provided for the grievance procedure.
Why didn't you file a grievance with the union? Well, I had many conversations with my union, let me tell you that. I just feel like a grievance was just another slow process where my voice once again would never be heard.
Unifor said in a statement Ms. Jaggernoth was made aware of all of her options by the union prior to deciding her course of action.
I think it's outrageous. This is not, the union grievance process is not a viable route for Patricia in this case.
Jaggernoth's lawyer says she's confident the commission will hear the case. She's writing to the commission to contest Bell's application. The commission will make a decision and would eventually set a hearing date should the case proceed.
You know, Bell needs to understand they can't hide from this. There's no pushing this under the rug.
Since CBC Toronto first aired her story back in October, Jaggernoth says there's been an outpouring of support from viewers, but also people with similar experiences.
My story is the story of Ontarians and Canadians. If you don't hear me, that means you don't hear us.
Meg Roberts, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. Let's get right to Colette. And Colette, forget Good Friday. Tomorrow is looking absolutely great, I think.
Yeah, I'll say, Chris, when it comes to the weather, anyway, it's not just good, it is going to be great for us on our Friday. The temperatures, as we talked about earlier in the show, a little bit on the cooler side of the northwesterly breeze, but it's all that sunshine that's so nice. The next couple of days, I think what you'll also notice is that we have cooler nights, which means the morning temperatures are a bit on the chillier side. So it just takes a little bit of time for things to get going and warming up. But with the high pressure takeover, a lot of sunshine over the next several days. There is going to be a bit more cloud cover into Saturday and again into Monday, but I'll walk you through what's happening there. And next week, the temperatures are really going to be swinging into milder air, and we'll see that especially by the time we get to about Wednesday, but the warm-up begins over the holiday weekend. So with that ridge of high pressure, that's why we're looking at sinking air, very stable air, so mostly clear skies. Now what happens, this is Saturday early morning, we do have this system fairly weak, but it's going to sneak in across Georgian Bay, and some flurries are possible into cottage country. It also wants to bring some of the cloud cover down, not just for the north shores of Lake Ontario, but back into southwestern Ontario too. So I put a little more cloud cover into the forecast there for Saturday, but I'm keeping the precipitation to the north. Overnight tonight, here are some of those cooler temperatures waking up if you're up early tomorrow morning. London, Chatham-Kent, -2, Windsor at freezing. And a very similar temperature for Toronto, 0 for that overnight low, a little cooler for Markham and Oshawa. Even Hamilton, you may dip just beneath at -1 there. Looking ahead at this temperature story. So 7 degrees tomorrow, -3 Friday night. So that's one of the cooler starts Saturday morning. 6 degrees the daytime high. Still a little cool into Sunday, but back to seasonal for Easter Sunday. Monday 14, Tuesday 17. And I'll tell you, Chris, by the time we get to Wednesday, at least the way it looks now, we may be seeing a 2 at the beginning of those double-digit highs.
Just incredible. Thanks, Colette, and happy Easter. Well, here's a sure sign of summer for you. Multi-day tickets are now on sale for this year's Honda Indy Toronto. Pricing starts at $75 for a 2-day general admission on Saturday and Sunday. This will be the 35th edition of the race, and it'll happen on a temporary course on the streets surrounding Exhibition Place. The action takes place from July 14th to July 16th. Finally tonight, the Punjabi diaspora in the GTA is welcoming the launch of a new air route to help reduce the travel time from Toronto to the Indian city of Amritsar. Tonight, the Italian carrier Neos Airlines launched its first flight from Toronto to Milan, where Amritsar-bound passengers can then board a direct flight. Prior to this, passengers had to take a 14-hour flight to Delhi and wait several hours for a connecting flight, or take an 8 to 10-hour road trip to get to Amritsar. Well, that's it for our show tonight. Thank you so much for watching. We're off tomorrow for Good Friday, but Shannon Martin has you covered Saturday at 6 o'clock. Have a great weekend and happy Easter, everyone.